You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Does an impossible condition stay impossible when we refuse to let that be the final answer? Find out more in today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Being told there's nothing more that can be done can feel like a door closing. Many of us stop there, accept it as the final word, and settle into whatever limitation we have been handed. Matt Johnson is a hypnotist and NLP coach who turned his recovery journey into powerful methods to help others break free from subconscious blocks. After a devastating brain injury left him living in darkness, Matt discovered that hidden PTSD was sabotaging his healing. By rewiring his subconscious with hypnotherapy and NLP, he not only recovered his health, he developed a method for helping others release deeply rooted emotional baggage and transform their lives. Here is my interview with Matt Johnson. Hi, Matt. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we'll be diving into working with impossible conditions. I feel like there's a lot that we can talk about there that will be fascinating for our listeners. So thank you for being here today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. We were just saying before, I don't think we've ever done an episode on NLP before on the podcast. So I very much look forward to exploring that and diving into different perspectives. Before we get started, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and maybe your story or the pieces that you feel are interesting and connect to what you do today and share with our listeners what it is that you do today?
Sure thing. I'm Matt Johnson. I'm a hypnotist and NLP coach. I help people take control of the subconscious processes that are controlling them. 2016, I got a severe brain injury. I was hiking tide pools with my kids when I slipped and landed at the back of my head on a slab of solid rock. I hit so hard, my brain got jammed into the top of my skull, and I twisted the part above my eyes, damaged my optic nerve. Brutal pain. I have no words for it, but if you've ever been zapped by electricity and felt that intense pins and needles type feeling, that's what was going on in my head. And for the next several years, I was so sensitive to light and sound, I couldn't even be in a room with the lights on. It's just too painful. I had a room that I nicknamed my dungeon playfully. I had black hefty bags taped up over the windows and spent a lot of time in there. In prison, they call this solitary confinement, not exactly an uplifting environment. I did something in there that paved the way for me to get out. And this was on day 2 of me being stuck in there. I made a decision. Now, the word decision comes from the Latin root de, which means from, and caedere, which means to cut. When you make a true decision, you cut off any other possibility. I had no clue how I was going to get myself out of there, but I knew I wasn't going to stop. And so I started out going the medical route. For the first year and a half, I went through every medical study on traumatic brain injuries there is that's out there, and I became a world-class expert on it. I actually put together a list of everything that helped me, everything from amino acids to hyperbaric oxygen, and I gave a presentation on all of those to the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation. If there's anyone out there dealing with a brain injury, hit me up. I give those out no charge, but they're tremendously helpful to people. During this time, I worked with 4 different neurologists. The first one told me there's nothing I can do for you, and then tries to schedule me for a follow-up. And I'm like, well, why am I going to come back if there's nothing you could do for me? I didn't say that, but it didn't make sense to me. The second one gave me a pill that took a little bit of the sting off. I'm like, okay, this is progress. I was having a really hard time sleeping then because the pain made it really hard to sleep, which made the pain worse. And I was going through these brutal downward spirals. So I asked them, is there something you can give me? They didn't want to give me the normal Ambien or whatever just because of my injury. So he said, no, there's nothing I can do for you. So on to neuro number 3, right away she says, oh yeah, let me give you amitriptyline. And it worked. I was able to get a decent 7 hours of sleep a night taking that. I'm beyond grateful to all my doctors. I wouldn't be where I am without them. The only reason I tell that story is how many people would have stopped with that first one. That is the key to heal. If you're dealing with an impossible condition, and I don't care, any health condition, you've got to take charge of it. And you can't just sit back and, well, doctor says there's nothing you can do, so this is my condition. No, that decision that I made on day 2 took me from that type of a mindset to, okay, you don't have my answer, who does? So after working with neuro number 4, I realized that medical science was not going to get me where I needed to go. And so despite being a lifelong skeptic, I started opening up to trying out energy medicine and things like that. Lucky for me, I live in California, so I had a lot to choose from. But one of the first things I tried was called Reiki. And I told you I had that pins and needles type feeling, right? The best description I can give is she took those pins and needles and made them fly in formation, if that makes sense. And I'm like, whoa, I have no idea what you're doing, but please don't stop. At the end of the session, I asked her, can you teach me how to do that? So I spent several days with her, learned Reiki. I went on to learn pranic healing, Qigong, Silva holistic faith healing, just anything I could find that helped. I tried to just dive in and get good at it. And I started to turn the tide. I did a huge amount of healing over the next couple of years, but I just could not shake that light and sound sensitivity. And so at this point, I'm about 4 years in and I'm thinking, all right, do I have permanent brain damage here? So I started looking around again and I found a special type of brain scan done by Dr. Daniel Amen. He's famous in brain circles, but an MRI looks at the tissue, which doesn't really tell you a lot with a brain injury unless you've got something really bad. He does what's called a SPECT scan, which actually maps the electrical activity in the brain. So it can show like if there's any areas that aren't functioning, they look like holes in the brain scan. Long story short, I went to get my brain scan and my brain was okay, but areas that were supposed to be dark were lit up like fireworks. And I was diagnosed with PTSD that day. Right away, I knew what my problem was. With a brain injury, the name of the game is bringing your brain waves down to give your brain a chance to rest and repair itself. My PTSD was keeping me in fight or flight and sabotaging the healing process. And so I knew if I wanted to beat the brain injury, get out of that dark room, I had to heal the PTSD first. I had no clue how I was going to do this, but I'd already, by that point, I'd known for years I'd had anxiety issues, depression, all that was obvious. But I'd never given it that label. I think PTSD is just something soldiers got. That was my thinking at the time. But I knew I'd had 3 different talk therapists, had the meds, all that, and I knew that wasn't going to work for me. It was like a garden hose against the tide. And so lucky for me, I was familiar with the incredible power of hypnosis when my dad quit smoking after 30 years of trying to quit and failing every single time. Pills, patches, gums, you name it. After one hypnosis session, he told me he never even craved cigarettes again. That's one of the toughest addictions there is, wiped out in an afternoon. And so I was familiar with that and also with neuro-linguistic programming or NLP from a guy named Tony Robbins. Tony famously had a woman that had 152 different personalities, and he was actually able to integrate her right there on the spot in about 45 minutes. I don't do anything that cool, but that's the power of this stuff, right? Knowing, what little I did, I went to NLP school and hypnosis school, got quadruple certified, and asked every single instructor I had the exact same question: how do you heal PTSD? And they all tried to help me, but none of them really had the answer. And back to the internet, and I spent the next 2.5 years just binging every single course, every book that I could find. And after over those 2.5 years, I finally put together a protocol where I was able to heal myself. I finally got my PTSD gone. And about 6 months after that, I was finally able to heal the brain injury. And long-winded answer to your question, but that's my backstory.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. And of course, there are challenges that happen in our lives, as with yourself and the PTSD and the brain injury, but I have this incredible feeling that we are innately so capable of healing if we can just find that almost like a key that works for us, like you went on this journey to search for, and finally, after trial and error and all of this, found what unlocked your body out of what you've been going through. So I feel these are powerful insights, and also part of, as you said, advocating for our own health so that when something comes along that seems maybe insurmountable or impossible at first, there usually are things that we can do if we don't just satisfy ourselves with the first answer that we get, usually from people who may not be familiar with everything that's out there for us. part of this podcast is sharing these incredible approaches and techniques that are available and showcasing how this helps us. So thank you for sharing that and for sharing with our listeners that there are ways forward. There are techniques, there are things that you can find to help yourself and to really come on your own healing journey. It must have been absolutely horrific to be stuck in a dark room and be cut out of your own life like that. And part of what you do now sounds like you actually help people come back into their lives with less pain, less overwhelm, less stress, less of all those things that kind of keep us from living fully. Yeah. So maybe share with our listeners a little bit about hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, because I know a lot of people who they hear hypnotist and they think chicken.
Yeah. That's the same example I always use. He's going to make me cluck like a chicken.
So maybe let's talk a little bit about that and explain the healing side of hypnosis and NLP. I know that a lot of people have been trained in NLP for sales. It feels very aggressive, very pushy, very manipulative. So how does that all come together when you're actually structuring your healing sessions or when you are working on yourself as well? How does that all tie together?
Great question. First of all, with hypnosis, what we're doing is getting your conscious mind to relax, and that way the subconscious mind can come out and play. You never lose the ability to accept or reject any suggestion given. That ability is there with you no matter how deep you go. You always have your wits about you. You always are in control. Most people, I think the fear comes from their introduction to hypnosis was a guy at the fair doing stage hypnosis or something like that. And if you watch, he'll bring people up and put them under, and he's looking for suggestibility, depth of trance, like any good hypnotist would, but he's also being very playful with them, and he's seeing who plays back. He's looking for who wants to entertain that audience, and those are the ones he keeps. Those people are in control of what they're doing, I promise. Okay, but as far as the other big fear that I get about hypnosis is people think I can't be hypnotized. I would ask you the question, have you ever been to a movie and cried or had it stir your emotions? You feel empowered or whatever. If so, you've been hypnotized. You had absorption in the experience, right? You forgot about everything going on around you. You got absorbed in that movie, and a continually narrowing focus. Those are the definitions of a hypnotic trance. You were hypnotized. If Hollywood is very good at this, they put you into what's called an alpha brainwave state, which makes you very suggestible. If you want an eye-opening experience, turn on a sitcom on TV and then listen from the next room. You will hear the laugh track has a very specific cadence. They know exactly how long they can go before they reel you back in. They're very good. But the hypnosis and NLP that I do, it's very much with a therapeutic aspect. I'm aware of the persuasion stuff. I know a little bit about it. I don't do a lot of it. NLP, actually both of them, they both started out as therapy type stuff. My issue, I told you I had the therapist, and I'm not bagging on therapists. Therapy is a wonderful tool for a lot of people. But in my own case, my stuff was subconscious, and the talk therapists were trying to solve that with the conscious mind. By the time you hit 30 years old, up to 95% of all your day-to-day behaviors are driven by the subconscious mind. And if that sounds like a lot, think back to the first time you drove a car, right? Your hands were at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. You were super focused on not hitting anything. You had to be, right? Fast forward a few years and you've got coffee in one hand, cell phone in the other. I'm kidding. Please don't do that. But that shows the process. It became automatic. Most of us have had the experience of driving and realizing we haven't even been paying attention. I've snapped myself out of that too many times to count. How did you not crash? It's because your subconscious learned how to drive, right? Very cool process for driving, but problems can happen when we teach it things that we don't want. Negative emotions, limiting beliefs, bad habits, things like that. When those programs get stuck in there, and they are programs, your subconscious does not think. It works just like a computer does. And you get that type of program in there, that's when hypnosis and NLP really shine as far as tools. They're designed to go in there and help you rewrite those patterns. Now, me being the first NLP person on this podcast, which is an honor, thank you. I did not know that. I would love to walk you guys through an exercise just to show you what it is. I could sit here and geek out all day and bore you guys, but if I just show you, it's a lot easier. One I like to do for people first is how to deal with stress, right? That's something we all have to deal with. So if you can think of something that gets you stressed out, hopefully nothing too scary, maybe a 5 out of 10, could be an overdue bill or a conversation you don't want to have, maybe a person who intimidates you a little, right? Think about that, feel it come up. And if you're not driving, if you can do so safely, this gets better if you close your eyes, but notice where you feel that in your body. Point to it. Now, in your mind's eye, if that feeling had a color, what color would it be? First impression. Is there more than one color? Just notice that. All right. Now, that feeling, that color, if it had a shape, what shape would it be? Whatever pops up for you first is perfect. Just run with it. All right. Now, notice that color, that shape. If it were moving, what direction would it be turning in? If it's hard to tell, try turning it one way, then the other. See what feels more natural. For most people, it's going to be spinning to the right or to the left, but whatever comes up for you is perfect. That's how your subconscious does this thing called stress. So we're going to show you how to undo it in just a second. Now, notice what direction it's turning. Try turning it the opposite way and see what that does to the feeling. Now, for most people, they'll feel a release. Some people, it makes it worse, but find the direction that works best for you. Whatever feels more peaceful or more empowering, whatever you like the best. And spin it in that direction. If you like, you can spin it up faster to amp up that feeling while you drain all the color right out of it. Just make it totally transparent in there. And then fill it back up with whatever color you like. Some people like gold or pink, green or blue, whatever feels most peaceful, most empowering for you. Now, still spinning it in your favorite direction in your new color, try adding sparkle to it and watch it start to swirl throughout like a candy cane or one of those poles in front of a barber shop. Notice what that's done to the feeling now. We took this thing called stress, right? And we gave it a visual component. You gave it a color and a shape and a spin. And we've told your subconscious mind, do the opposite with it, right? And notice how that stress is released. That is NLP. We're giving you basically the operator's manual to your mind and to your body. Your subconscious mind controls everything in your body that you don't have to think about. Your breathing, heartbeat, body temperature, how much insulin you create after a meal, also that pit in your stomach or wherever you felt that stress at, your subconscious controls all of that. And so once we were able to tap into it and communicate to your subconscious by changing the color, the spin and all that, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's do it this way. We can then change it into what you want. Does that make sense?
I love that. And I felt that release because I was thinking of something quite stressful and turn it the other way. Oh, I can turn this the other way. It's amazing how that works. And when you said make it transparent, take the color out of it, it actually spiraled off like a little cloud. I could just see it dissipate. So that's amazing. I hope our listeners had some similar experiences with their shapes and colors. And of course, you could probably try this with other things too, stress, maybe pain or other things that they could
it will
think
work
of.
for just about anything. Yeah, you can do it with pain. I actually have a hypnosis exercise that I give out for pain relief. If anybody wants that, hit me up. I give it out no charge. But we do very similar things with it. We'll get into it and mess with the colors. We'll split it in half and things like that, make it leave your body. But it's, again, your subconscious controls all of that. That's why we can hypnotize you. You can listen to nothing but words and have actual physical pain relief in your body. It's because your subconscious is controlling everything.
That makes a lot of sense on why, for some people, as you said, talk therapy doesn't quite reach that place where all of this is lodged. And I was in talk therapy for a long time. I share this a lot. I was in talk therapy for nearly a decade. And I had the same experience. And I always felt like it just wasn't getting to what the actual problem was. And
very common. Yeah.
Same thing with hypnosis. It felt like I got to that place right away. It was one session later and I felt transformed. So I understand when you're saying that for our listeners also. I think there are certain ways to approach different things that are happening for us. And for some things, talk therapy is great. For some things, somatics is great. And for a lot of this programming that we have, and I also would say that a lot of this programming might even run from a very long time ago, and we might not even be aware that we've never updated or released this programming that might still be running from when we were children, and it's no longer useful to us. So I find hypnosis and NLP have this very special power to get to exactly those pieces that are foundational for a lot of the other healing to be able to happen. Yeah, fascinating.
When I'm working with someone, I always take them there. The very first time we talk, we'll just do a quick get together and talk about what's going on with them. I always take them back to childhood, because from 0 to 7 years old, you had what's called the imprinting phase, where your brain was taking in huge amounts of data, but you hadn't developed what's called your critical faculty yet, which means you couldn't judge anything that was coming in. And whatever was going on around you, the people, the environment, the events are what you basically were programmed. You were in that alpha brainwave state most of that time. And that's part of the reason why hypnosis is so effective, is because we're taking you back to that same brainwave state where you picked up your crap, basically. But it's very common for kids to internalize everything that's going on. Really classic one is mom and dad are fighting. I must have done something wrong, right? When in reality, you had nothing to do with it, right? But we create all these false beliefs about ourselves. And then by the time we hit 7, 8 years old, when we develop that critical factor, we can actually start to judge, okay, this person may not be the best role model for me, or may not be a happy person, or whatever. Our personality is pretty much formed by that point. And we've got these programs running around down in the subconscious. And by definition, they're out of your conscious awareness, subconscious. And anytime you're dealing with those invisible patterns, it seems, that's a clue that you've got something like that going on down there. It's not always easy to identify them. If you're trying to do that, journaling can be very effective for bringing that stuff to the surface. You can also just look, if you've got approach avoidance, or you've got a goal you just have not been able to hit, try, when you really try to do it, notice what comes up for you. And a lot of times big clues will be your buts and your ifs. I could do this, but I would do this if. No, how do you complete that sentence? Those are important clues to, okay, I've got some type of a block or subconscious program down there that's sabotaging this. But it's fascinating stuff. It is a lot of fun I'm a geek, but it's a lot of fun for me. But most people don't realize your subconscious mind is actually thousands of times more powerful than the conscious. We have no idea how much of our life it actually controls. And so it's why hypnosis and NLP we can make a change down deep, and the ripple effect on the surface is enormous, to the point where it seems like a miracle. In reality, it's not. It's just we're dealing with those programs where they lie.
Are these programs then also connected to our, I want to say, physical body in some way? Because we can affect, obviously, physical manifestations, as you also worked with your brain injury. And I know for myself, I worked with it with chronic pain. How are those things connected on the subconscious level, and how are we affecting these physical manifestations?
Just like we unspun the fear or the stress in your body, right? Imagine for a second, if you will, do one quick experiment with me. Imagine biting into a juicy lemon. Crush that lemon between your teeth and feel that juice squirt in your mouth, right? Now, did you start to salivate just a little, right? Where's the lemon? Only in your imagination. You just create a physiological response with nothing but a thought. There's a couple great books, The Body Keeps the Score and Answer Cancer, where they talk about that mind-body connection a lot. That trauma and all that is actually physically stored in your body. And if you don't get it out of there, then it can cause problems. I'll refer you to the books if you want to research that more. But again, it's just like what we just did. It's the subconscious mind controls absolutely everything. And when you get those programs that are adversely affecting your body, I advocate for people to do exercise because you want to flush that stuff out physically, but until you deal with those mental patterns that are creating it, it could just come right back. That's why he talked in the book Answer Cancer, he talks about cancer, autoimmune stuff, a lot of it are found in clusters in the same person. And he traces it back to what he calls a sensitizing event, in other words, trauma. But it's a response by your system to something that upset it. And it's mental, it's physical, you need... A lot of people, somatic therapy does a lot for them. It's like me being in that dark room. I had to be open to anything and everything until I found what really worked for me. You know what I mean? But everybody's going to be different.
Yeah. All of it is connected on some level. We just need to find the piece for that person to work with what's going on. Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm curious, Matt, has anyone of your clients ever gotten stuck in hypnosis? I know that a lot of people are afraid that...
I actually get that question a lot. You will come out of it on your own. You're actually going in and out of hypnosis states all day. We talked about the movie, the TV, right? Those are hypnotic states, exact same mechanism in the brain. If you've ever taken a long road trip and you can just zone out on the road, that's called road hypnosis. Same mechanism. You're going in and out of them all the time. We just don't realize it. If you got into a hypnotic trance and all of a sudden, say I had a heart attack or something and couldn't finish, you would come out of it on your own. I think I saw the episode that you're worried about with Jim Carrey way back in the day where the guy made him think he was a chicken, and the guy had a heart attack and passed, and Jim Carrey spent the rest of his life as a chicken. It doesn't work that way.
That's really good to know. I feel like some clients have asked me about that. So I actually went and did some research to see if I could find any papers on people remaining in the state. But to alleviate everyone's fears, I did not find anything. So I think what Matt is saying, it's safe for you to do this with a trained practitioner who can hold the space for you, who can guide you through some of these things and accompany you on this journey. It does happen that there may be things that come up for you during this process, depending on what you're working on. And so I think having that safe space with someone you trust and someone you can work with, and that is really important. But I think you're very safe in the fact that you will return to yourself and your body at the end of the session. In that sense, I feel it's a very gentle approach, a very gentle methodology, because it's obviously not physically invasive, and it can be cathartic in a sense that you can have some big emotional things come up and process during this time. I feel like it's a very gentle approach to a lot of different kinds of healing that we can do.
The way I do it, you're releasing that stuff. And so I get from pretty much everyone I work with is they physically feel lighter, more open, more free afterwards. They can feel a major change in their body. I've had a couple of people tell me it's like I vomited everything I was carrying around all those years. You know what I mean? That's the feeling, because again, you're holding that stuff in your body. A lot of times you don't even realize it. I had one just a couple of weeks ago. We worked together and she said, I realize now why I was getting migraines, because of the way what I was doing in my head. You know what I mean? It's getting you in touch with those subconscious processes and helping you release them. And I get a lot of people they're used to sitting on the couch and rehashing their thoughts, those memories and things like that. I don't do that. We just go in and rip them out by the roots. You know what I mean? But it's a release more than anything. We don't rehash the past too much. We go in just long enough to get rid of it.
Yeah, in that sense, I feel that you worked on your PTSD, right? So that in itself can be a very difficult thing to do. And I feel like hypnosis is a good modality to approach that with in that sense.
Incredibly powerful. Yes. As far as bringing down that fight or flight response, that's always the first thing we want to do. That's when the real change work can happen. NLP and hypnosis shine for that. The only other thing that I've really seen for that works is EMDR. And EMDR has the major advantage of being covered by insurance sometimes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've heard from both people. Some swear by it, some say it's useless. I think it just depends on the person and the practitioner doing it. But that's a great thing to check out. But when you've got that heavy duty stuff going on, there's a good chance that you need some subconscious intervention going on there.
Yeah. And as you said before, I feel that our listeners can really bring this into their everyday lives. They can come back to this episode and go back a little bit where you did the exercise, and they can do this maybe with various things that are coming up for them. And as you said, listeners, start becoming aware of some of the patterns in your lives. If you're noticing some of these things that you're stuck on, some of these things that keep repeating over and over, there might be a bit of a clue there that there's some subconscious programming running under the surface that could maybe benefit from some hypnosis or NLP. Or if you are struggling with some of your healing pieces on your journey that keep butting up against resistance, or you're not quite progressing how you are envisioning you wanted to. So those are some of the patterns maybe to become aware of and tune into and feel into it and see if there's maybe just something else going on in the subconscious mind. So I think our listeners can take that away and really as I said, bring that into their own lives and kind of start paying attention a little bit to the things that are going on in their daily lives. So thank you for sharing those. It's so helpful, and especially the exercise you shared with us. I'm going to try that on, sometimes I get anxiety. I'm going to try it on that.
Okay. Yeah. It's a very powerful exercise. And once you've done it once, you know how to do it. To just identify it, unspin it, drain the color, fill it back up, add sparkle, done. You know what I mean? Once you do it a few times, then, it can become second nature. And that is life-changing for so many people. Just that simple exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And if our listeners are curious now and they are no longer afraid of being turned into a chicken and maybe they're open to some hypnosis or NLP, how can they connect with you, Matt? And what kind of programs, services, and resources do you offer for our listeners?
I actually have one for free. You can go to my website, mattjohnsonnlp.com. That's mattjohnsonnlp.com. And I have a free NLP course for you. It's called NLP Mind Magic, where we'll do the unspinning fear. We also go through things like limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, procrastination. It's basically my 10 most requested items that people need help with. I put them all together in a course for you so you can take control of those programs. That's a big part of what I do, is just getting people in touch with what they're doing and not even realizing it. This course will help you do all of that and more. But that's free for you up there on the site. If you want to work with me one-on-one, then there's a form there to do that, to schedule a quick free 15-minute call with me. We'll go through and figure out what's going on, and no pressure, and just come up with a game plan.
Amazing. And Matt, can our international listeners work with you as well? They can have a call with you as well, or do they have to be in the US or in California?
I take anyone who wants help. If you can speak English, then, if you can understand me now, then you can work with me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And we, of course, will be linking to all of Matt's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for the links to the website, the NLP course, if you want to take that, and maybe get your feet wet a little bit, find out what it's all about, work with some of the exercises and techniques that Matt's offering, and see how that works out in your own life. You never know. I feel like the results from hypnosis and NLP are often just so overwhelmingly positive that it's really fun to work with, and to actually get that feeling that we do have choice and agency over a lot of the things that are happening in our lives that keep us from living our lives fully. So I feel it's very empowering what you're offering. And thank you for sharing that. And again, check out the links if you want to work with Matt. And even if you live here in Europe or you're in Asia, you can connect with him and work with him directly as well. And Matt, I just want to thank you for your time today and coming on the show and sharing. I feel like you have so much wisdom to share with our listeners, and I've truly enjoyed our conversation and learning new things. So thank you so much for being here today and taking the time to share this with our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, everyone. Be well, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.